Good evening and welcome to Late Night with Lenette. I'm Lenette Peterson, your host. My guest this week is Merrimack's very own Ellen Kolb.
Hi, Lenette.
But first, our Maggie moment. And this Maggie moment has me very concerned. Our governor has a problem. She has a huge problem with spending. I think the woman's a shopaholic. And unfortunately, the money she's using is the taxpayers' money. Last term, she was taking credit for the Bill O'Brien balanced budget.
Which she ran against.
Exactly. She was taking credit for the budget. She balanced the budget. Her and the Wicked Witch of the East, Terry Norelli, both took claim for the budget. This term, she's saying that was a reckless budget, and she's complaining that they're even getting worse with this radical budget that the Republicans are trying to pass now. It was quoted in the paper, I think it was the union leader was saying that her budget is going to be devastating to low income and the middle class. Now, here's the deal with the budget. Ellen, you work for me.
Yep.
I pay you $10 an hour. After a year, you think you've done a great job. You want to make $20 an hour.
Don't we all?
Yes. I say to you, well, I'm going to give you $15 an hour. Did you get a raise?
Yes.
Did you get a cut?
No, I did not.
Exactly.
I know what I know
And
what she's
that's
saying.
what people are complaining about. They want a certain budget level. They're given an increase, not to the extent they want, and because they don't get what they want, it's a cut. It's not a cut, folks. Life is not fair. You don't always get what you want. That was our governor. Now for the state of the House. Folks, I do not understand what's going on in the State House. My 2 terms up there, Republicans signed a pledge. No increase, taxes and fees. Last term, we raised the gas tax.
That was 4 cents, was it?
4 cents. It was
Per gallon.
huge. Per gallon. Now, not even a full year later, Republicans are leading the way on a gas tax increase.
Is this dedicated to something, or is this for general revenue?
Good question. No one knows yet. Where did the money go that they've been making from this last increase that had to happen that July? Folks, this is wrong. If you're a Republican, vote Republican. You don't vote for taxes being raised on your constituents. We'll have more on this matter. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, Lenette.
And how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Ellen is a writer of a pro-life blog, Leaven for the Loaf. And she can be spotted in Concord, usually in the Legislative Office Building, speaking for life.
And or listening. I think
Yep.
I think reps ought to be watched plenty. And if I'm not up in Concord, I am on a trail somewhere, as you know.
Exactly.
Usually flat ones.
Now, also, I think you have a reserved seat in the House gallery.
I have a favorite seat.
Yes, you always can be seen up in the House gallery on Wednesdays, keeping track of what's going on in the House. And there's a lot to be checking on this term.
There's a lot to be checking on and a lot to listen to
Yeah.
and to see what's happening.
Now, what on earth led you to get involved in politics and wanting to spend so much time in Concord in the first place?
Well, I can't remember a time when I wasn't interested. I'm one of those strange people who's born with that political inclination. And when I moved up here with my family, or with my husband, we'd only been married a short time. We've raised our family here. But I discovered that New Hampshire's very different from Florida, where I grew up. The capital's right there. The legislature's huge. Your neighbors are your legislators. You see them in the grocery store. You see them at the transfer station. I remember the town dump used to be the best place to campaign. And I found that for someone inclined to want to know about public policy, this was a gold mine. Going up and listening to what was happening in Concord was so easy and so available. Very, very open government, and I love that. And being pro-life, the two of those just work together.
Very now, how long have you been in New Hampshire?
Since September of 1982, so over 30 years now.
So you have seen a huge change in the demographics of New Hampshire politics.
I have.
Yes.
I have. Now, when I first moved up here, it was in September, and a guy named John Sununu was running for governor against the incumbent Hugh Gallen. And one of the first things I saw on TV was a debate between Sununu and Gallen. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that little guy's being so mean. Because, as you know, John Sununu takes no prisoners in debate. Well, I learned later that the policies he was promoting were the ones that made sense to me. And of course, he went on to win the election. But that was my first look at New Hampshire electoral politics, is you better be prepared when you're going up against someone in a debate about public policy, because in New Hampshire, we expect you to know what you're doing.
Exactly. Now, can you remember the first campaign you worked on?
The first campaign I actually worked on, believe it or not, was not until, well, aside from local campaigns, was not until Pat Buchanan in 1992. I remember because I had a little one in August of 91, and I had her in a little carrier next to me while I was making phone calls up at the office in Manchester. And that's what got me accustomed to the nuts and bolts of grassroots campaigning, the phone calls you make, the door-to-doors, handing out literature, all of the contact that goes into a New Hampshire campaign. Because for all that we hate phone calls, I hate getting them. Why do campaigns keep doing them? Because enough contact and conversations get made that it turns out to be worth it.
What was the first local?
The first local, I cannot even remember a time when I wasn't involved in local. I remember when I moved up here, there was an executive council race. Again, this was election season that we moved up here, and I was living with my in-laws in Nashua on Fairmount Street, and one day my mother-in-law walked me down to the end of the street where there was a tannery where pollution was a serious problem. It was a Superfund site, and a young man named Jim Donchis was challenging Bernie Streeter for executive council. And Donchis, of course, later became an office holder in his own right and is still very active in public in New Hampshire. But that was it. It was down the street. Things were happening right there. And that was something else about it was just another way of telling me New Hampshire is an excellent place to be.
Oh, yeah.
And we were up there because we moved up because this is where the jobs were. This was when high tech was very much the backbone of the economy. Young families like ours came up. Times have changed. We've been through some shifts. We're in the middle of shifting times now. But New Hampshire's come through. New Hampshire adapts. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that's what brought us to New Hampshire as well. My husband's job transferred up here. That job kind of got a little squirrely, and fortunately he was able to jump ship and was hired by BAE Systems. And fortunately he's been gainfully employed with BAE since then.
I think everybody who's lived in New Hampshire for more than 10 years understands how squirrely the economy can be and how many shifts can happen, which means I need to watch what goes on in Concord, because I want to make sure whoever's voting on things like spending understands it hits people whose jobs might not be there in a year.
Exactly. And they say that if you live in New Hampshire long enough, you either know or related to a state rep.
Yes.
And I think you can also add, you also know a BAE employee.
I have been on hiking trips of, it can be day trips, it can be several trips, and I will meet people. It's like, oh, I know you. Aren't you a state rep? Here you are in your hiking kit. But yeah.
Now,
all over.
What is the one thing that you do not like about campaigning?
I hate phone calls.
Yeah,
I hate them.
I think that's everyone's least favorite.
I hate them. I will do the last campaign I worked full-time on was in 2012. And I would do anything short of making phone calls. I was working for a party, and I would literally make a drive around the state to hit all the field offices and deliver goods to the field reps and meet the volunteers, rather than do 10 minutes worth of phone calls.
Now, what is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do is to put on one little thing. It can be a little emblem, it can be a t-shirt, and go to the county fairs.
There you go.
There are some, each of the parties have local groups that can be you meet wonderful people there. But what I like is going to a place where it's not a party-oriented thing, and just walk around, and especially talk to the vendors, because those are the small business people.
Right.
That's time tremendously well spent. And my favorite thing about the campaigns I've worked on is that I have had statewide work to do, and I love this state. I love all of its. I find trails everywhere, but the people that I've met have been wonderful.
Yeah, two campaigns, I went to the Hillsborough County Fair and volunteered there in the Republican booth. And not that I would have there wasn't a lot of Merrimack people going out to the Hillsborough County Fair. I mean, oh my, that's such a long drive over to
New Boston.
I mean, shudder. But the people you met was just so much fun, and walking around talking to the vendors.
Oh, if you haven't been to the Lancaster Fair, you haven't lived.
No, I haven't been to that one. Yeah, that was definitely out of my district.
Yeah.
But yeah, the county fairs are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
With politics. Now, I know you've said that you like to go hiking, and
Yep.
I know that firsthand because we've gone hiking together. How do you work hiking in the campaign trail?
Always keep a pair of boots and sneakers in the trunk of the car, always. And I always keep a couple of my favorite books about the state. One of them is on rail trails,
Yep.
and another one is just a general New Hampshire trail book. And if I know that I've got to be up in, got to head over to the Dover and Wolfboro offices, it's like if I can fit even half an hour, get my head away from the craziness of a campaign and just walk for a while in a park, in one of the state forests, up to one of the fire towers, down one of the rail trails, all of which have tremendous stories behind them. It's a good thing.
Oh yeah, very good.
So yeah, you don't clear that with the front office. You don't add any miles. You simply look at where you're going to be for the day. You look where the trails are. Boots are in the back. You do it.
There you go. And it's nothing like going out on a hike or a bike ride on a trail.
You got to get your head straight.
Clear the cobwebs
Yeah.
from the head.
And campaigns are not designed to keep you on an even keel. So
Oh yeah, oh for sure. Yeah. Now, if you could pick any president, past or even people who are there's rumors about now, whose campaign would you want to work on? Any president?
any president.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it would be very interesting to work for James Madison. I would love to just pick his brain and be by his side, but he had such an important role in the Bill of Rights, but also as a personality he was a Virginia boy, and yet in the course of developing things he had to work with the Massachusetts boys, and there were differences in temperament as well as policy. How did he do that? He made it work, and he was president during the War of 1812, a tremendous challenge. He's the kind of guy I think I could learn from. And for candidates now, there's a handful that just fascinate me. But
can you imagine James Madison having at his disposal what candidates today have?
They had to settle for broadsides then,
Yeah.
with just mass printing. It would be something. And you think of things like, well, James Madison was little 5'4" guy. Is that telegenic enough for campaigning? That sort of thing didn't matter so much back then.
Yep.
It didn't matter
Nope.
that what your appearance was so much as what your policies were.
Exactly. And it seems appearance matters more with female candidates.
Oh, you bet.
Than male candidates.
You bet.
Yes. Now I can remember a Republican class that I was taking. I was running for office for the first time.
Okay.
And you weren't allowed to be in office to take this course. So I was on the fringe because I was running for office, and I was the only person that had done that. And one of our classes was on appearance, hair, your
Now,
clothes.
did they say anything about the jacket?
Don't you love this jacket? My anything goes jacket.
Here I am, I'm a Lenette jacket. It's infuriating.
But this woman, she was a retired stewardess, if I can remember correctly. And she had all her body armor and all this stuff laid out on things that we should and shouldn't wear. And one of the first things she said, she looked out at us and she said, ladies, if any of you let your hair down, you best be bold and brave. Oh, I stood right up and laughed, and I said, well, I am bold and brave. Yeah. Bring it on. And why do women have to color their hair to be taken seriously?
Oh, and I recall when Governor Palin was selected to be